Sugar. How are you for sugar during your contest? During contest prep, do you try to remove it altogether? Like I'm talking about more simple sugars. Like if it's a fruit, a piece of fruit, that's maybe a different thing than a piece of chocolate, for example. Are you making sure you remove all of that during contest, or how are you for that?
If I do have something that I might sort of deem to be like a cheat meal or something, I never think to have simple refined sugars. It's not that I don't have a sweet tooth, but I just kind of think that's the most empty of all calories, especially people that just like that drink fizzy drink soda on a daily basis, the sugary varieties. That's another reason also I don't drink alcohol. I just don't get the idea of consuming all these calories in a liquid form. Like you can smash it in 2 seconds and then you're constantly wanting more. It's no wonder it sort of creates, for lack of a better term, addictions, whether people believe that or not. An addiction is, sorry to sort of go off on a tangent here. Do you need it? No, you crave it and you want it anyway, to the point of you'll go out of your way to get it. That seems like addictive behavior to me. And people are just crazy about sugar in all forms, more so when it's created in a hyper palatable way. It's not something that I think, oh yeah, that sounds appealing. Even outside of competition, I don't really have any simple sugars. So the only sugar really in the day that I'll have is from the fruit that I have post-workout. That's about it. Yeah.
Okay.
I have carbohydrate that's usually in the form of potato, sometimes rice, sweet potato, but mostly fruit.
No, that's understandable actually. And I've experienced it myself. Like after dinner, for example, when I've gone down these bad rabbit holes, if you will, these sugar rabbit holes, where after dinner, you're like, you have maybe a piece of chocolate one day, and then the next day you're like, I'm craving that chocolate again. And then before you know it, you're doing that for consecutive days in a row. I know people can relate to this. So let me ask you this. After your dinner, for example, and I know everybody's different on maybe it's after lunch or after breakfast, or for breakfast, how many people do you know just grab a croissant or a donut for breakfast, right? But anyways, the point is that because you've eliminated that, you don't have these addictive behaviors or these cravings, if you will. I'm assuming anyways, that you don't, right?
Yeah, you're right. Like I can easily go months and months and months. I'd like to prove it to myself too that I could go a good year without anything like that. I haven't yet because, I'm human and everyone has their vices. I don't want to give people this impression that I'm just like a robot that only eat whole food every single meal. It's because they market it so well. And yes, it is highly palatable. And so even I fall victim to wanting or feeling like, yes, I'm craving this. But some people go as far as, no, you need that, man. You need that 80-20, that 90-10 split. We went thousands of years without any of this stuff. You've just convinced yourself of it because that's how it's sold to you. You should reward yourself. I try and think of simple, refined sugar and those hyper palatable products more a treat. Most people are going to agree with this, but they don't treat it in that way. I think of it like buying myself some new shoes or something or think of it like you kind of should, like a special occasion. So if after I finished a competition, obviously I reward myself, or if, I got a new job and it's my first pay and I just want to reward myself and feeling proud of that moment, whatever it might be, and you buy yourself some shoes. I'm just using that as an example of whatever it might be. If you're a girl, you're buying yourself a dress, whatever it might be. I think of those foods in that way. I'm only going to have them as a reward. I've done something to feel deserving of that because I know it's not really serving me any benefit outside of that. It's just something palatable. It's not like I'm using that to reach a goal, even though some people will try and convince you that, there's a lot of social media influencers that try and convince you that having the donut, they say, have the donut, have the slice of cake. You can use that towards your goals. Well, in what context? That's when you're dwindling everything down and you're dwindling the physiology of the human body. You're sort of reducing it to calories in, calories out. And that's all it recognizes. There's nothing beyond that. And I really can't stand that. I think actual food can do a lot for us. And then there's products. And the products are for special occasions. That's what they should be. Yes, they exist, but they should only exist in that realm. And people have got to remember that in most cases, especially things that are actually packeted, a boardroom of people sat down and discussed what's going to be highly insatiating, highly palatable, I should say, and cost effective so that profitability is whatever it is they want it to be. And that's what you're consuming like on a daily basis. You can look beyond it as just food and something that you should be consuming in moderation. Look at it as like, what do you really think it's there for? Do you think it's there to serve you? Or do you think it's more to make these companies a profit? A pretty easy question to answer, I think, but to each their own.
If you're coming back for more, that's more business for them. So that makes a lot of sense.
We're unfortunately in an era where those same companies, I think without the people realizing they're doing it, those same companies get so heavily defended. If I put up something in the past about Whole Foods and trying to minimize these products, you should see some of the backlash. It's like they're acting like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, protecting their precious. Food is food, dude. Don't demonize food. I'm like, you're not even talking about food. It's not food. I think as soon as we recognize the difference between food and products, then I think we could have a more honest conversation about nutrition. When the products get lumped into the same category as food, and somehow they did over time, now they're even like, it's almost like an integral part of people's diets within the fitness community. They've been convinced, they've been sold this idea that you have to include this stuff, or that you can and it's fine, it's not going to have any negative impact on your physique. And now we've got a huge community of people that will protect the companies, I guess, in many ways, by saying, basically, how dare you demonize my donuts? It's just like, yeah, if that's not an addiction, I don't know what is. It sounds nuts.
Like you said, they're protecting an addiction too, right? That's the thing. It's something that makes them feel good momentarily, not maybe long-term, because we know that if you consume these foods chronically, that, okay, you feel good in that moment. That's what keeps you going back. But then the feeling after, or, you know, you feel sluggish, you feel like low energy, and whether people link it to the food or not, or the quote unquote food, right? Because there's no nutritional value really, just a caloric value.
Think of it this way too. Everything, the laptop has a caloric value, but I'm not going to eat it. If you flavored it well enough, I'm sure you could get someone to eat it. That's all it is. You're eating flavored dog shit, essentially, and convinced that it should also be a part of a balanced diet, whatever the hell that is, you know? Like,
yeah, that's valuable to bring up because you might start questioning people and their choices for sure. Because like you mentioned, it's interesting because of course, I'm sure that it is the dose that determines the poison in this regard to an extent, right? But I do think that if the dose starts getting too high as well, it can have a negative effect on the appearance of your physique, even if you're in a caloric deficit and you're losing weight. Because I've experienced losing weight and looking worse. I've experienced it based off of most likely maybe stress, maybe food choices. I've had two different body compositions, and whether that's training related, that's the thing, you can't pinpoint it. But all I do know is that these were the decisions I was making, and there was better choices I could have made from a nutrition standpoint as well.
And back to what you said, the dosage maketh the poison is true, obviously, because there's been people and they've documented taking varying degrees of actual poison, like the guy that injected snake venom, such minute doses of snake venom into his bloodstream that over time, you know, the idea was to, for lack of a better term, vaccinate himself against snake bites and snake poison. And as far as I know, it worked. That is true. And you can make that argument. It's just in defense of a lifestyle that only benefits these multi-million, multi-billion-dollar companies. You just kind of have to, at some point, look at it beyond that of, well, just go anywhere deeper than surface level. The kind of people, too, that are defending these products, they're not in the industry of improving people's health. You'll notice, and not to name names, and it's nothing like against them personally. I truly believe they think they're doing the right thing and they think they're doing what's in the best interest of their audience. But that kind of is it. What's in the best interest of their audience is what people want to hear. It's like, oh, I'm in terrible shape and this is the stuff I eat. And then when you're hearing, well, no, you can keep eating that. You don't have to take the cake out. You don't have to take the chocolate out. You don't have to take any of that out. Right. They go, oh, great. I'll just keep doing it, but I just minimize the portions. Like, yeah, just calories in, calories out. Like they'll say, not to swear too much, but the mantra calorie deficit was going around. I think it's died down a fair bit. I've seen it sort of resurface here and there from more uneducated influencers, but that was going around the bread and butter of fitness industry knowledge. Like, this is all you need to know. And they would conflate losing fat with weight. So they would say calorie effing deficit. That's it. They might elaborate. Sometimes their videos were as brief as that. Oh, you're not losing fat? calorie effing deficit. Oh, this is a calorie effing deficit. It's like, and that's it. There was no elaboration on it. Oh, cool. So I could literally just drink beer all day as long as I'm having less calories than I was the day before, and then do it again the day after that. I'm going to lose fat. Like, no, you might lose weight, but from where that comes is anyone's guess. And I mean, you can take a very educated guess on that. You're going to lose a lot of muscle in the process. You're going to end up with skinny fat. In general, your result is not going to be as beneficial. So then they started adding, you've got to meet this, the macronutrient targets. It just gets more and more elaborate, but they never talk about health. They don't talk about what's healthiest for you, because they just think it's an unrealistic standard to expect of people. And I get that, because everywhere you turn, there's a product, there's something you probably shouldn't be eating. But I think more people have to start coming from a perspective of what's healthiest for you, what's going to be most beneficial, and getting people to change their lifestyle entirely. If you keep promoting, or if you keep suggesting that the body is just operating on this caloric manner, that's all it's registering, I guess, then yeah, people are going to keep eating crap.
So when I was talking to one of the other guests on the show, Mitch Jarvis, right? Maybe he's listening to this. What's up, Mitch? But because I know he listens to the podcast. So he mentioned that he whacked up his protein during his contest prep, and just that alone made a difference on how his physique looked, how he felt, the training effect. And when I say whacked up his protein, maybe it was like double the amount. So imagine this. Imagine let's just say for fun that the calories were being tracked in that regard, but the protein intake was different than before versus after. So maybe it was a higher carb, higher fat, lower protein versus higher protein, lower carb, moderate fat, or something like this. Wow, that made a difference on how he felt, how he looked. Well, these are stories that I think people need to start paying attention to more than the guy who's just giving you a snippet, like you mentioned, on Instagram or whatever it may be, where here's the answer. Well, is there more to the story? Is that where it ends? And then people go and run with that. And it's like, oh, this guy just said I could just eat whatever I want and still lose weight. I've experienced it personally too, like I said, where even just the ratios were off, and I felt like this is not working for me from an appearance standpoint too, just the way I look, not considering how I felt as well, right? Like if my carbs get too high or if my fats get too high, we were talking about this last time. I feel completely different on both approaches. So that's interesting to me.
You can quite literally take two people with similar stats, similar height, similar body weight, similar training styles, whatever it might be, and get them on the same diet of the same amount of calories. But what you give, say, person A, if you give them only, what's a term we said before,
highly processed,
highly refined foods, and it's purely about meeting that caloric intake per day, and you give person B, say, just whole foods, and they're trying to hit some sort of macronutrient target there, but there's an emphasis placed on macros and micronutrients, I guarantee you'll have two very different results. Right. So even if they're both training with the same intensity and frequency, same training style, obviously genetics are going to factor into that. But I just mean in general, I think if you gave, and yes, I'm saying I think, because as far as I'm aware, there's not a single study done on this. And that's where it becomes, for some people, annoyingly enough, problematic. It's like they need this study. They don't need what's based in reality. It's like we're living that experiment now, and they don't need that. No, I need a conclusive study to tell me, dude, this whole read more, do less mentality is really bad. And you need to be pragmatic. If you're a real man of science, and I would say this to anyone watching that cares far more about the science than actually the doing the thing, be pragmatic in your approach. If you're skeptical of something, but you've seen it work for other people, try it yourself. And that's why I always encourage people to try and change, not entirely, but change their diet so much so that they're relying more so on whole foods. You can still treat yourself, maybe do it once a week, rather than working those things in every day just to meet a caloric or macronutrient target. Rely more so on whole foods and what those foods can do for you on not just a physical level, but a physiological level, and how it can improve training performance. Look into those things, and I guarantee you'll see not just change in your physique, but how you feel. And how you feel is important, because again, it's going to improve the other aspects of your life, even your psychology.
I was just going to say the mindset and how you're affected on a day-to-day basis with not just motivation, but your mood, right? Your mood,
that's
your happiness. Yeah. That's important. Especially if you live in a country where there's no sun, man, you got to counter these things, right? I know there's different practices and whatnot, but for the most part, I think there's an approach that makes the most sense logically and physiologically that one should take. And it really is cool to see how lean lean these guys are getting.
Yeah.
I haven't experienced that yet. Even you said you haven't experienced that yet, where you have the striated glutes, right?
That's right. Yeah. Maybe I mentioned it last time, but even this time around,